It started with a silence too heavy to be ignored. Not the sound of a fight, not slamming doors or bitter words hurled in anger. This was worse. This was the kind of silence that settles on a home like dust on old furniture. The kind that reminds you that love has already disappeared from the room, even when no one is brave enough to say it out loud. Kody Brown used to think he was creating something remarkable, a family united not only by love but by a divine purpose. 4 wives, 18 children, bound together in what he thought would be a living beacon of faith and harmony. To everyone else, it seemed like a fantasy, but fantasies have jagged edges, and when individuals no longer feel noticed, no longer feel loved, the fantasy begins to crumble. Not at once, in a dramatic fall, but incrementally, like observing a house decay from the inside out, while the exterior remains as photographable as ever. On television, the Brown family appeared bursting with life: birthdays, road trips, teenage rites of passage, laughter ringing through kitchens. But when the cameras stopped rolling, when the crew loaded up and went home, the script ended. What remained was reality, and reality was fraying. It began with time, Kody's time, time that used to swing between houses, wives, and children, until it ceased to do so. His presence rested in one location, Robyn's house. Her children, her habits, her requirements became his universe, and for the rest, silence and distance became the solution they feared. The pandemic followed. For the Browns, it was not merely a world crisis, it was the tipping point. Kody imposed strict rules, rules that Robyn obediently followed. But Christine, Janelle, and Meri were not fooled. To them, it wasn't about safety, it was about control. Unable, Christine's daughter, required critical surgery. Christine pleaded with Kody to attend. He wouldn't, citing it was too risky. To her, it wasn't fear talking, it was his decision. And that decision showed exactly where his allegiance was. Janelle, the peacekeeper, attempted to keep the cracks held together. For years, she watched the finances, kept the family machine in motion, remaining down to earth while others flared hot with feeling. But even she came to notice it, his patience wearing thin, his words edge-thin, his visits briefer. His independence, once admired, now only brought distance. And Meri, her heart had been broken a long time ago. Since the catfish scandal, Kody made it crystal clear: no romance, no intimacy. He called her friend, but friends don't withhold love from one another. She remained, hoping loyalty would temper him. It never did. The breaking point was finally reached in one of their family meetings. They sat in silence, tension bearing down like a storm. Christine expressed her hurt. Janelle confirmed she felt Kody was no longer emotionally present. Meri remained silent, but the years of sorrow were expressed in that silence. Robyn spoke up for him, as always. But Kody didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge their pain. Instead, he turned the tables, saying he was the one being abandoned. The irony was savage. The man who had retreated from 3 wives now portrayed himself as the victim. It wasn't denial anymore, it was delusion. And in that instant, the silence became something else. A quiet, boiling rage. Every wife went out that evening more sure than when she went in. It was no longer a marriage. It was a memory, a delicate system sustained only by nostalgia. Christine wrote her hurt into her notebook. Janelle quietly constructed her autonomy and looked ahead to a future she might master. Meri cried and prayed, still holding on to the belief of a miracle. Robyn dug in deeper, closing herself and Kody off from everyone else. And Kody, he withdrew into anger, into blame, into the refuge of Robyn's house where he still felt respected and loved. Beyond that door, however, the family was disintegrating, the world burning, and he refused to notice the smoke. The public, initially captivated by the Browns' ideal of plural love, came to notice something else emerging. What had been a tale of unity and family solidarity morphed into a gradual disintegration, and the public was outraged. Social media lit up with anger, with terms like narcissist, controlling, emotionally unavailable, all now forever associated with Kody's name. Viewers who had previously rooted for the Brown family sat in horror as the fantasy crumbled, bit by piece. But the wives weren't villains in this tale, they were survivors, and the silence that had suffocated their lives would soon be broken by words no one thought to ever hear. "I'm leaving." Christine Brown's voice was soft but unbreakable. "I stayed silent too long, I smiled as I suffered, I believed in a love that never believed in me, but now I choose myself." It was not anger, it was not done for shock value. It was truth told with shaking tears and steel will, and in that one statement, the reign of sister wives came crumbling down. Christine had once been at the center of the family. She came in as the 3rd wife in an era when plural marriage was still full of promise. At the time, she was lively, humorous, warm, a woman who passionately believed in sisterhood, spirituality, and family. She craved connection. She craved belonging. She gave everything, raising 6 of Kody's children, maintaining traditions, making birthdays magical, homeschooling, cooking, holding the family together with quiet strength. She smiled on camera. She spoke all the correct lines, but behind she was dissolving. Year by year, she convinced herself the space between her and Kody was just a bad season, a time they would get through. But seasons went by and nothing changed. The space became a permanent thing. The heat was gone. The small things, his jokes, his touch, how he used to reach for her, those went first. And then the big things came after. Nights spent together, future plans, even talking. What hurt most wasn't that Kody gave so much of himself to Robyn. It was that he had stopped giving anything to Christine altogether. She wasn't fighting with a rival wife anymore. She was invisible. And when she finally dared to share her dream of moving back to Utah, a place that felt like home, where her older children and her happiest memories were, Kody didn't just say no. He dismissed her, cold, public, on camera. "I'm not going to sit here and be yelled at over a dream that isn't going to happen," he said. It wasn't rejection, it was humiliation. His tone was barbed, sharper than the words themselves, disavowing not just her aspiration but her value. Christine's heart broke in that instant, not because of Utah, but because she realized he didn't love her, perhaps he never had at all. She didn't blow up. That wasn't Christine's style, but she was not going to remain quiet anymore either. So, in the backyard of their Flagstaff house, she invited Kody to sit alongside her. And beneath the open heavens, she readied herself to destroy the life they had constructed by finally picking herself. The breeze traveled through the trees that afternoon, whispering change. Within the residence, the kids played, unwitting of how their way of life was to be forever changed. Christine's voice shook, but she did not waver. "I can't do this anymore. I need a relationship where I'm seen, where I'm heard, where I'm loved." Kody's reply was bitter, defiant. He said he'd done the best he could. He blamed her for betrayal, for turning the children against him, for breaking up the family. But Christine held firm. "You gave up trying years ago, Kody," she said gently. "I was just the last one to know." He accused her of being selfish. He accused her of walking away. But Christine's last words were the ones neither of them could avoid. "This isn't a family anymore. Not when I know, not when I want to be in." For Christine, the toughest aspect wasn't Kody, it was the children, Usable in particular. Her surgery, Kody's decision not to attend, had been an open wound that never healed. And now, as Christine broke it to her kids that she was leaving, they responded with a mix of emotions. But surprise was not among them. Her older kids, Aspen, Mykelti, Pedon, stood behind her proudly. They'd witnessed the secret tears, the silent pain, the courage it required to carry on. They understood that this choice was well past due. The younger ones, however, were in the middle, confused, pulled between love for their dad and allegiance to their mom. Christine reassured them softly. "You're not taking sides, you're taking peace. I will always love your dad, but I can't live this way anymore." The cameras recorded it all. Christine packing up her life, folding into boxes photo albums, and encasing delicate memories in bubble wrap. Each one marked with precision, not for tidiness, but as a method of ending chapters. The master bedroom, the living room, rooms that still resonated with laughter, birthday tunes, and family prayers. But the core of the house was departing with her. News spread like wildfire. Kody Brown splits with Kody after 27 years. It trended in a second. Fans were shocked, but quickly shock gave way to admiration. Social media swelled with encouragement. Women worldwide posted about how Christine's bravery was the impetus they needed to leave abusive marriages behind. What was apparently a family divorce turned into something more. A movement. A statement. "I deserve better." Christine began anew in Utah. A new house. A new life. She invested in her health, in her kids, in her happiness. She smiled. She danced on TikTok. She went out on dates. She radiated. And as Christine reinvented herself, Kody disintegrated, his rage intensifying, his hold weakening, his family fragmenting irretrievably. But Christine did not turn back. She did not torch the bridge. She merely left and let it implode by itself. "I invested everything I had in a marriage that invested nothing in me," she later remarked. "And I finally got it. I wasn't leaving Kody. I was returning to myself." For years, she had been carrying peace. Now, she was deciding to carry herself. If Meri was the first wife, and Christine was the heart, then Janelle was the spine. Janelle was never the shrillest voice, never the one to cry on camera or share mysterious quotes on social media, but beneath her stoic practicality was the backbone of the Brown family. She was the one who kept it all functioning, with budgets, spreadsheets, and sacrifices too quiet to be tallied. When Christine departed, the foundation rocked, but when Janelle finally stood up, the whole house of cards tumbled. She had been the doer for decades. The provider, paying bills, managing finances for 18 children, various houses, infinite expenses. While others provided love and closeness, Janelle provided necessities. Employment, investments, bills. She saw that each child was provided for, Kody used to compliment her independence. What he did not know, however, is that it was not a choice. It was surviving in the isolation he had left her with. As Kody became increasingly entrenched in Robyn's world, the other wives felt the chill. Christine complained about it, Meri mourned it, Janelle researched it, and what she discovered left her profoundly disturbed. The conversations with Kody grew brief, utilitarian, his visits random, and when they did converse, it wasn't about love, it was about logistics. She'd mention money, the future, the dream of homes at Coyote Pass, but Kody would not respond. He shut her down, dismissed her, argued rather than listen, and Janelle started to understand what Christine had so clearly perceived. He wasn't listening, he wasn't even attempting to. And then the pandemic hit. Kody's strict, controlling rules took the family to the breaking point. His expectations drew lines in the sand so severe, they sliced through every remaining connection they had. The guidelines came down with an iron fist, sanitizing the groceries, no gyms, no visitor contact with adult children living outside the house. For Janelle's sons, Gabe and Garrison, it was out of the question. They were working young men with lives, school, friends, good sons, responsible sons, but they could not lock their lives away for a few hours with their father. When they refused to obey, Kody disowned them. No visits, no negotiating. Janelle was furious. They are your sons, you're punishing them for living their lives. But Kody wouldn't bend. Instead, he accused her of betrayal, of choosing her boys over him. That accusation pierced deep. Of course I'm choosing my children, Janelle shot back. They're here, they need me, they respect me. The stress came to a head, and in season 17, fans witnessed what was later referred to as the breakthrough argument. Raw, unvarnished. Kody got loud, shouted for respect, shouted for obedience. He yelled at Janelle for undermining him, for not respecting him as the patriarch, for not showing the loyalty Robyn had given so freely. But Janelle didn't fold, she didn't shriek, she did something more powerful. I'm not going to apologize for being an independent woman, she stated boldly. I'm not going to shrink myself to make you feel powerful. Kody's expression betrayed him, shaken, rattled, scrambling to get back in charge. You don't act like a wife, he said. Her response was chilling. Then maybe I shouldn't be one anymore. The dream was already in shambles. That land at Coyote Pass, the dream of hope, of living houses together, had turned into nothing but a cemetery of promises. One big house first, then 4 individual ones, then a common area, then nothing. Plans kept altering, nothing ever constructed. Janelle had invested her funds, her dreams, even lived in an RV on the property to be near the dream. But Kody never came, he didn't assist, he didn't support, and she realized at last it was never homes, it was control. Unlike Christine, Janelle didn't announce her departure with emotion or fanfare. She didn't make a scene, she simply stopped trying. Quietly, she moved into her own apartment. She poured herself into her children, her business, her growth. When asked about the marriage, she said simply, "We've been separated for months." And with that single line, another Brown marriage fell. And if Christine's departure was rebellion, Janelle's was revolution. People loved her strength, her clarity, her insistence on not being a victim. She didn't storm off in anger, she stormed off in peace. Because for Janelle, worth was no longer defined by a title. Her narrative struck a chord. With each woman who bears families on her back, with each woman instructed to be strong, when what she truly had need of was a place to lean, Janelle emerged as their mirror. Her exit was powerful because it was silent, because it was intentional, because it was fearless. Kody, meanwhile, spiraled. He told cameras he'd been betrayed, that his wives had ganged up on him, that he was never truly respected. I feel like I'm holding sand and it's slipping through my fingers, he confessed. But it wasn't sand, it was love, it was trust. And he hadn't lost it suddenly, it had eroded over years of neglect. With Christine out of the way and Janelle finally free, Kody's world closed in. Robyn alone was left, and even she came to know the price of being the sole survivor. Janelle, on the other hand, flourished, hiking, cooking with her children, living her life on the web, smiling bigger, laughing harder, expanding her business, reclaiming herself. I don't regret the time I spent with Kody, she told an interviewer. I raised amazing kids, but now I get to decide what I want, and that feels good. Janelle hadn't left angry, she left clear. She learned that love never has to mean losing yourself, that sometimes standing your ground means walking away from the battlefield entirely. He let go of me a long time ago, she said. I just finally had the courage to see it. Of all the heartbreaks in the Brown family, Meri's story may be the quietest and the most tragic. Unlike Christine's bold departure or Janelle's quiet revolution, Meri's path was paved with silence, with deprivation, with decades of loyalty to a love that had already died. She was the first wife, the foundation, the first believer who remained loyal to Kody before cameras, before the world, Before even sister wives had a name, she was the foundation of a dream that offered so much promise. But in the end, she was the most forgotten. Long before anyone was familiar with the name Kody Brown, there was just Kody and Meri, young, in love, full of faith and conviction. They legally wed in 1990, entering plural marriage hand in hand. And for Meri, it wasn't coercion. She was convinced. She was convinced of him. She wasn't deceived. She made this choice knowing what it would entail. And that choice cost her something she could never have dreamed of. She was present when Janelle became part of the family. She was there when Christine arrived. And afterwards, she was the one who gave up her legal marriage so that Kody would marry Robyn and adopt her kids. Meri gave, Meri sacrificed, Meri obeyed, Meri waited, but Kody never returned. The gap between them did not materialize overnight. It developed gradually, quietly, over more than a decade. The cracks started with heartbreak infertility. Meri had only one child, Leon, while the other wives each had 6. In a society where motherhood was the ultimate badge of honor, she felt her value diminishing. Then there were the miscommunications, the jealousy, the fights. And little by little, Meri found herself on an island, not just separated from Kody, but from the sister wives as well. She hid it behind smiles, behind family photos, behind laughter that never reached her eyes. But the isolation was there. Audiences saw it. And then came the day that took it all apart, a scandal that shook the Brown family to its foundations. In 2015, Meri became involved in what she believed was an online romance. Someone nice, considerate, finally looking at her. But the guy she believed she knew was no man. He was a woman who was catfishing her. Meri was devastated, humiliated, exposed. But the most profound pain resulted from Kody's response. No empathy, no grasping out, just blame, just remoteness. He perceived betrayal, not the desperation of a starving woman for love. From then on, the marriage was a shadow, not legal, not written, but emotionally, it vanished. Kody confessed it openly, on and off screen. There's no chemistry, I don't trust her, I'm no longer interested in Meri. And Meri's face told it all. Her eyes glassy, her voice shaking, sitting in the confessionals, she still pleaded. Therapy, second chance, anything. But Kody didn't budge. We're friends, that's it. 30 years of sacrifice, commitment, and family building, and all she had to show for it was an empty friendship. On television, viewers saw a woman desperately clinging to a marriage that no longer desired her. She was pushed aside, excluded from family decisions, neglected in her own home. And then the day came that shattered the hearts of millions. At a family event, Meri attempted to say something. Kody hardly even glanced at her. "Why in the world are you here?" he growled. It was worse than any fight. That simple sentence told the world what Meri probably knew all these years. She wasn't included in his story anymore. When Christine went away, and when Janelle did the same, Meri remained. Through the betrayals, through the silence, through the painful lack of love, she remained. She clung to the hope that perhaps Kody would come and see her again. But he didn't. And the ultimate blow didn't occur during a raging argument or a tearful face-off. It happened in a subtle, biting admission. Not to the cameras, but to her. "I don't feel married to Meri anymore," Kody stated. Millions of viewers heard it first. Even Robyn was stunned. "Why hasn't he said it to her face?" she asked. The response was easy. Kody didn't want the embarrassment. And Meri, she had misread his silence for too long. Finally, she broke hers. For the first time, Meri released. Seated in front of the cameras, her voice firm but weighted with sorrow, she stated, "I've wasted years trying to repair something the other person wasn't even present in. I always held on, but now I am finished. No bitterness, no rage, only sorrow. A sorrow born of loving a man who had fallen out of love with you years ago." This time she wasn't begging. She wasn't waiting for crumbs. She was finished. With quiet dignity, she went online and announced what had already been true for years. "After more than a decade of arrangement, I've made the decision to permanently terminate our marriage relationship. Simple, final, and at last free." Ever since, Meri has been rebuilding. She began a business. She traveled alone. She started smiling again, not the gritted smile of a woman hiding pain, but the actual, genuine smile of a woman finding herself again. Her captions changed from "still hoping" to "starting over." She spoke out in ways she never spoke out before through podcasts, Instagram lives, and quiet declarations online. With each word, a little more courage filtered through. She also started mending one of the most significant relationships in her life, her relationship with Leon, her only son, who is transgender and uses they-them pronouns. Together, they've discovered new honesty, new strength, and a richer kind of love. Meri is no longer waiting for approval from a man who wasn't able to provide it. She's discovering it in herself and in people who see her. "I stayed because I believed in something more," she said. "But now I believe in myself." Her departure wasn't fiery or boisterous. It wasn't a slammed door or a fiery exit. It was calm, resolved, but also brave. Because sometimes the most courageous thing is to just let go of someone who let you go years ago. And with that, the Brown dynasty started to fall apart. A family once celebrated and attacked as the new face of plural marriage had shattered beyond recognition. What was constructed on one and bold ideals was now nothing but broken vows and silence. Christine had departed, Janelle had departed, and now Meri as well was gone. Kody stood alone amidst the wreckage with only Robyn beside him, but even she couldn't salvage what was already lost. There had been a time when 4 wives gathered round the table, planning meals, having children, sketching a dream of building houses on Coyote Pass. There had been reunions, road trips, celebrations of new babies, and the wild happiness of a huge family. All of that was over by season 20. In its place was distance, wives spread out across states, children separated, and Kody alone, still insisting on loyalty from a family that no longer wished to obey. In confessionals, bitter his voice hardened his eyes, not sorrow fury. They betrayed me. They turned the kids against me, he complained, but his children said otherwise. Gabe and Garrison, Janelle's sons, exposed how their dad had cut them off in the pandemic. He just stopped calling, Gabe confessed. It was like we didn't count anymore. Garrison, who had been so loyal to his dad, ceased contacting him altogether, the hurt too much to handle. Even Pedon, the son of Christine, weighed in on social media, defending his mom for walking away. She waited too long, he said. We all could see how sad she was. The great, unified Brown family Kody had boasted about was gone. The children were alongside their mothers. And Kody, he was emotionally abandoned by almost everyone. The public saw it too. The man who was once viewed as a dynamic, if imperfect, leader now found himself playing villain to his own tale. On the web, there was no mercy. Memes ridiculed his tantrums. Commentators picked apart his rants. Mental health professionals examined his habits. The internet had given its verdict. Kody wasn't just unfortunate, he was the issue. And at the eye of the hurricane was Robyn. When she came into the family in 2010, she was demure, sweet, optimistic. But as time went on, her picture changed. To fans, and occasionally even the other wives, she was the favorite, the homewrecker, the cause of the family's dissolution. Whether it was fair or not, Robyn was the wedge. Kody lived mostly at her place, obeyed her rules, and defended her before anyone else. At family gatherings, he stood up for her, not them. And now that Christine, Janelle, and Meri have left, Robyn remains the sole survivor. But it is a Pyrrhic victory. She used to dream of a big, plural family, sisters, children, laughter, a village. What she got is a man driven by rage and a house haunted by what could never be. In a single devastating moment, through tears, she confessed, "This isn't what I signed up for." But it is what Kody constructed. What was to be their future, Coyote Pass, a legacy that endured, now remains vacant, nothing but ground and shattered dreams. The Browns used to stand on Coyote Pass with wide-eyed hopes. 2 houses for each wife, one next to the other. Children growing, grandchildren running, the laughter of children filling the land. It was to be there forever. But years went by and nothing ever came out of the ground. No blueprints, no foundations, no permits, just words. And now Coyote Pass is nothing but knotted weeds and curving dirt roads that go nowhere. Not a future, just a monument to a dream that died. Janelle herself camped on the very ground one time in an RV, committed to hanging around the vision. Now she lives again in town. Christine is gone to Utah, her own heaven of happiness and fresh starts. Meri has folded inward, channeling all of herself into healing. And Kody, he never mentions building anymore. Because who would he build for? The family he used to dream up isn't around to build with. Aside from the heartache, the Browns must now reap the fallout of their broken empire. Decades of living in several homes have left economic bruises. Lawsuits regarding land, inheritances, and investments in Coyote Pass cast dark shadows. Their image, once an intriguing fascination, has been soiled by backlash, even among longtime fans. And rumors abound that Kody and Robyn will leave it all behind, selling the property and abandoning the very dream that was to keep them together. But cash can't mend what's broken. Reputation won't save children who no longer feel loved. In one of his more subdued interviews, Kody sits alone, his voice low and gravelly, his eyes heavy. Perhaps I was too strict, perhaps I didn't lead well, perhaps I let anger control me. It's not an apology, not exactly, but it's as close as he has ever come because Kody knows the truth inside. He didn't merely lose wives. He lost their respect. He lost the trust of his children. He lost the very legacy he himself used to claim he fought for. He's not anymore the patriarch of a big plural family. He's merely a man, sitting in a peaceful house, wondering how the life he built up fell apart around him. While all this is going on, Christine glows in her second marriage, free, laughing, healthy. Janelle invests herself in her kids and her company, her composure as steady as ever. Meri is rebuilding, reclaiming her strength moment by moment. And what about the kids? They're forging their own courses, away from the limelight, away from the drama, and in most cases, away from Kody. The Brown family didn't disappear. It transformed, it grew, it learned, and maybe, just maybe, that is its real legacy. What began as a symbol of unity, faith, and love ended as a cautionary tale of what happens when control replaces compassion, when pride overshadows partnership, when love is given unequally. The empire didn't collapse all at once. It cracked slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but silence. And occasionally, silence speaks louder than words ever could.